everyone, and welcome to the most exciting, heart-filled, interesting, inspiring. All right, it's a great hour, and we're so glad that you are logging on to join us. I am Brenda Viola from Lympha Press, and you'll see our regular anchors here. Susie Boshoff is in flight, so she may or may not be joining us. You already know Angelique Charles, the Lippy Butterfly. You already know, of course, PGP, Pale Ginger Pear, Tara Cruz, Patty Cornute, Lipedema Fitness, Jenny Bogine, Lipedema and Food Sensitivities, and two of our new friends that are with us right now, Lauren Fonvielle, who is a mind shift and tapping expert. You had said in chat, what about tapping for pain management and to distract us when our mind gets cluttered? Lauren's going to talk about that tonight and also show us how to use tapping. And then Dr. Omar Beidas from Orlando, Florida. He is a surgeon and he is affiliated with firstaccessplasticsurgery.com. So if you have any questions regarding surgery, this is the time to bring them. But you know, we're all thinking about FDRS. And if you are not familiar with that, it stands for the Fat Disorders Resource Society, FDRS. Many of us were at the FDRS conference this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia. For those of you who weren't there, we want you to get a taste of it. So we've got our main takeaways to share with you. For those of you who were there, we'd love for you to just talk and chat. We shouted out our chatters a lot, didn't we, Patty? What did we say about our chatters? We said that they're fire. Our chatters are total fire, and we love you. We appreciate everybody who has logged on. I am, before we even get started, going to launch a little questionnaire, a poll, because we've got so much that we gleaned from the FDRS conference. We almost wondered, should we have a special roundtable to just focus on that at another time? So please do weigh in with that. And if so, we'd like you to choose which date would be best for you. And even anchors, those of you at the table, please do vote, because we want to know what the best day and time is if we should proceed with it. So far, we've got 100% saying we should do that. And Rich Bradley just showed up as well. Rich Bradley is a Lympha Press sales rep. He is a compression therapy consultant, works like this with Dr. Beidas in Florida. And I think a lot of our audience has wondered, what is the relationship with the local rep and the doctor? So, you know, Dr. Beidas, when someone comes to you and you know that they can, first of all, how do you use Lymphopress and pneumatic compression to help your patients that are surgical candidates?
Great question. Thanks for having me. And so, yeah, Rich has been great. As you said, we work very closely with our reps. I would say our physical therapists and occupational therapists probably work closer hand in hand. And I really lean on them to guide pre and post-op treatment protocols. Excuse me. So in my practice, what we typically do is I see them, and if they don't already have a therapist, and even if they do, I refer them to one of my in-house therapists at our clinic in our hospital. And then we make sure that they have all the appropriate pre-op compression and fluid management machines. And so our therapists prefer a Lymphopress. So they, you know, if the patient doesn't already have one, then they will prescribe one. And then they work with Rich to make sure the patient gets it. We use it pre-op. Excuse me. We have one in the clinic, actually. And then we also use it post-op for fluid management.
Thank you. That's excellent. So then I heard from a lot of folks from the FDRS conference, I need to get in touch with, I want a Lymphopress. What do I do? And you know, I'm just me, myself, and I. And so I count on working with the reps like Rich Bradley. And I will often say, Rich, talk to a patient. They're interested in having a Lymphopress. What do you then do, Rich? How do you follow up with the patient? Because I want to assure everybody who logged on that we can help you and we can connect you. And we are like this with therapists and doctors to help you manage your condition. So Rich, can you speak to that for a moment?
Well, I think a lot of times patients are trying to get more information on one, how hard is it to get a pump? I'm always asking them, are you working with a therapist? It's always good to work with a therapist because I just believe knowledge is power. So you have to learn everything about that condition and all of the different options that you have available to take care of it for yourself. So they're asking me questions, I'm asking them questions, and together we try to figure out a plan on how to get them a Lymphopress, whether it's ordering it from their specialty doctor or their primary care doctor. If they don't have a therapist, I'll try to get them in connection with one of my therapists. But it's just a kind of an understanding of, what are the benefits, how's it going to benefit them, and we kind of take it from there and I answer all their questions.
So I think you bring up a really good point. And Nita Cluis also has a question for you, Dr. Beidas, about do you treat patients outside of Florida? I want to say before you answer that, though, so many of the patients that we met are looking to get a diagnosis. And you've just pinpointed something important, Rich. We've got a network of doctors and therapists that know how to diagnose lipedema. If you want to be connected, we will help connect you, and that helps to close that loop. Dr. Beidas, do you treat patients outside of Florida?
Great question. Absolutely. So I've actually, as of last month, moved my lipedema clinic to being entirely virtual because most of the patients we were seeing were out of state, out of the country. And so it made very little sense at that point to have a hybrid where I was running back and forth between trying to manage a virtual appointment and then trying to manage an in-person appointment. And so, yes, we treat patients outside of Florida. We still put in that physical therapy referral. Unfortunately, our physical therapists cannot have a consultation with patients out of state. And so typically what they will do is have a phone call and kind of guide them to the appropriate steps to help them get a local therapist if they don't have one already, but then also coordinate their post-op care. Because most of our patients post-op will stay about 10 to 14 days after surgery. And in that time, they will see our therapists. So we want to coordinate those visits with them while they're in Florida recovering.
Gotcha. Wonderful. We heard from lots of wonderful surgeons and lots of medical experts. You're probably all wondering, where is Linda Ann Kahn? Because she never misses a roundtable. Linda Ann had to treat some clients tonight, but she gave this presentation at FDRS on the vagus nerve, and the issues are in the tissues. And it was 15 minutes. She is going to do an entire hour-long webinar with us for Lipedema Awareness Month. I'm going to give the link in the chat. And Patty, you've got exciting news about that, don't you?
Yeah, she's joining Crystal and I on our Living with Stage 3 Lipedema on April 30th at 2 p.m.
That is awesome. So maybe we want to put that in chat as well so people can remember to tune into that. That's excellent stuff. Susie, we can see that you have joined us. You are so absolutely adorable in the airport. And I'm going to unmute you for just a second. Where in the world is Susie Boshoff?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm in Austin Airport. We just landed for the KetoCon convention. I forgot it was the week after FDRS. I was like, what am I doing?
Well,
So
we were
hi.
so excited that we did not have to see you. Last year, for those of you who don't know, Susie couldn't be with us. So we had a flat Susie made a little sign that we had in all of our group photos so she could be with us, but we got to hug her in person this time. And I want to say that in chat, there are so many new names and faces, and we welcome you so much. We're so grateful that you joined us. Natasha Wall is here. We see Rosie Posh. I hope I'm saying your names correctly. And then some favorites every month. Resoundingly, everybody wants us to do a special edition about FDRS. Resoundingly, everybody chose Tuesday night. Is that bad for any of our anchor panelists? Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you can give me a thumbs up, if you can be there, and I will set it up and we will promote it. All right.
Can you mute me also?
I would love
again?
to. You know, people have been trying to mute me for years and it just doesn't work. But we got you muted. If you want to talk, Susie, just put your hand up and I will unmute you. All right. Real quick, before we get to tapping, I want your top takeaway from the FDRS conference. And let's start with you, Pale Ginger Pear.
It was kind of a blur for me, honestly, because I was so focused on like my presentation going through my head when I wasn't off learning. But a lot of it was a blur for me. I was excited though to see the other patient perspectives, because I think it's really important to hear not only success stories, but stories like Jen, where it ended up making it worse. Because it's a good thing to know and understand that that is a possibility, and to not kind of go in blindly, but to make sure that like you're aware of what can happen.
Yeah, that's really super important. And we always say surgery isn't necessarily the answer for everyone. You've got to follow your own instincts, do your own research, do what's right for you, and choose the correct surgeon for you. In fact, I want you to speak to that in a little bit, Dr. Beidas, but let me go to Jenny Bogine, who was in attendance at FDRS virtually. So
Yes.
Jenny, tell us what your big takeaway was.
Well, you know, and it's so interesting because there were so many great sessions there. I will say my biggest takeaway is that I am pulling out that darn massage gun between learning about the compartment syndrome theory and the myofascial release with the vagus nerve from Linda Ancon. Between those two things, it was my reminder that I need to switch things up sometimes in terms of self-care and fold that back in and see what happens with that all. And I'm going to be humming and moving my ears.
She was talking about how pulling your ears and doing like that can help calm your system and calm your vagus nerve.
Can you do that again?
Yeah,
I suppose.
I don't think I can. But thanks for asking. Dr. Beidas, you are tripping. You see, we became friends because I used to live in Florida and I would see him at different events. And, you know, one of the important things, and I think, Kara, you would speak to this as well, is when you are working with a surgeon, you want to be able to have a comfort level. You want to feel like they see you and that they hear you. And I have always found that to be the case with you, Dr. Beidas. But don't pick on me because I'm in charge tonight. So, Lippy
Right.
Butterfly, what was your big takeaway from the FDRS conference?
My goodness, there was so much to take away. I'm definitely with Jenny, and I'm doing a little bit different with my massage gun. That is totally an everyday thing for me, but I'm going a little bit deeper, like Karen Herbst said. But my big takeaway really came from a combination of Linda Ancon and you, really. Linda Ann was talking about how we hold trauma in our tissues, and she was talking about how that constricts emotions from being able to flow. And then you spoke to losing a father at a young age and kind of like holding those emotions in. And that just kind of reminded me of myself from losing my dad at a young age and now recently losing my mom. And I've had such a hard time with grieving and really not wanting to grieve, really not wanting to go to that dark place. But I'm starting to understand, especially from everything, this patient stories and actually talking with other people and from everything that was shared, that I needed to go ahead and release that. And maybe some help was needed. Linda Ancon had mentioned myofascial release. So I'm definitely going to be looking into that, tapping, and anything else really that can help me along the journey to release all of the stuff that's tied up in my tissues and causing me some excess pain.
You know, I love that you raised that because we are whole human beings and we may have physical issues, but we also are emotional beings. And this whole concept that we are connected and that you can deal with the external, but then if you also deal with the internal and releasing that trapped trauma where the issues are in the tissues, that's something I'm going to be focusing on myself. Thank you for raising that, Lippy.
I'm sorry, one more thing. I'm going to be looking for counseling too. I said myofascial relief, but I'm also going to be looking for counseling. Like, I think that counseling is something that is good. We talked a lot this week about dealing with depression and anxiety, but like how we're actually dealing with it, I think sometimes just saying I need a little bit of help is worth it.
There is no shame in asking for help. And I thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that. We believe strongly that it's actually a sign of strength to ask for help. And again, there is no shame in any of that. In fact, on our Lymphopress website, we have pages devoted to mental health resources for patients and for clinicians. Because when you're dealing with a chronic condition, it's hard. And when you are treating patients with chronic conditions, it also presents challenges. So please do go to lymphopress.com. We've got those pages there. We worked closely with NAMI to create them, and they are wonderful resources. You're getting lots of love in chat, Lippy. After the session was over, she sang a gospel song for all of us and brought the house down and brought us all to tears. You always do that with your gift. And you know, I read somewhere, and you probably all know this quote, it's in the cracks where the light comes through. And I think a lot of us have faced cracks in our lives, and the light comes through and it actually helps others. So thank you for bringing your gifts always, Angelique. What about you, Patty? What was your big takeaway from FDRS?
Wow, patient connection and how it envelops you and just makes you feel so safe and seen. And then the flip side of that, when you leave, and you spoke so eloquently of that in your blog about the blues, it's just such a vulnerable place you walk back into, and to be able to tap into those new friendships that you've made. And we all were joking that we're no longer just online digital friends. We are friends. We have met in person. We are friends.
Yeah.
And really the connections and the similarities that we all seem to kind of run in a circle with to pull on those friendships when we need them.
So important to have a network. That's why we do these roundtables every month. That's why we're so glad that this online community is growing, because we bring you not just medical experts, which are so important, and it's important for them to see and hear you and know what you all care about, but then also patients just like you who have walked this walk and will walk this journey with you. Susie, is it appropriate for me to unmute you so you can tell me your biggest takeaway from the conference? All right, I'm going to try. There you go.
Hi. I mean, my biggest takeaway from the conference, first of all, I really have to rewatch Dr. Herb's her keynote talk blew my mind, and I need to be able to watch it again. Just that this is that okay. I'm going to try to word this in a way that makes sense to everybody, but
while walking through the airport.
No, we're trying to get to, we're outside trying to find wherever the lift is and Uber, but anyway, it doesn't matter. My biggest takeaway really was that this is a legitimate disease condition that requires a multifaceted approach and team. 100%. Not that I didn't believe that before, but like you're going through life getting gaslit a little bit by doctors. We have to wait for the next one. Grant, I can't get in yet because I'm talking. No, in a minute. Anyway, supposed to get into an elevator. Don't cut me off.
No, it's fine. No, you know what,
one
Susie?
second. We'll take the next one.
Susie, your takeaway is
anyway,
so important.
I just wanted to say,
It takes a team. It is a valid
Yes.
condition, and too many patients have been gaslit over the years, and it's time for that to end. So I thank you for sharing that. That is so important. And
I feel I feel like we have the tools to do that now, just
Good.
from this one. But we have to work with the FDRS and everybody else. Okay, I love you guys. You can mute me again because I'm getting
We
into
love
an
you
elevator.
too. Thank you so much. So I want to ask about the gaslighting issue, but I first want to go to you, Lauren. You've been very patient for us to finally get to you. And, you know, we've talked about issues in the tissues and trapped trauma. And we have had chat where our patients have asked, can tapping help? How would you answer that?
I would say yes, that it can. You know, tapping can help with a wide variety of conditions, from anxiety and stress to physical pain. And I love what you were talking about with the issues in the tissue. So tapping, also referred to as EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, is truly a process that helps you do just that. It helps you find freedom from your emotions. And so this idea that as humans, we have had tons and tons of experiences in our life, and those experiences have emotions attached to them. And when those emotions are uncomfortable emotions like anger, frustration, sadness, overwhelm, those are not emotions that we enjoy feeling, right? Those aren't the warm and fuzzy emotions. So as humans, what we tend to do is we shove that stuff down, and then we distract ourselves with something else, right? So maybe for some people that's throwing yourself into your work. Maybe it's, you know, really just focusing on your kids, whatever is going to distract you from feeling those emotions. And while that can work in the short term, over time, all of that stuff continues to build up to a point where it's going to come out. And sometimes that comes out physically, and sometimes that comes out emotionally. And I think that can also exacerbate physical conditions, right? And so tapping is a tool that really helps you to hold space for and acknowledge the emotions that you're feeling, and really begin to peel back the layers as to why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Because a lot of the time, there can be things that happened in your past that truly are connected with how you're feeling now, and you might not be consciously aware of that connection. And so tapping helps you to create that connection. It's like this connecting of the dots within the body.
So how does that work?
Yeah. So it's a very organic process. And so if we're talking about physical pain, right, if your main presenting issue is physical pain, or your main presenting issue is anxiety or stress, what you do is you put words to how you are feeling, and then you tap on certain points of the body. And when I explain what tapping is, it's this process of gently applying pressure to certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging these emotions that you are feeling. So it's very similar, or I compare it to acupuncture. So when you go to an acupuncturist, they take those tiny little needles and they put them in at certain points of the body. Those points that they're putting them in at are the end points of the meridians. And the meridians are how energy moves through the body. But instead of needles, we're applying light acupressure. And by doing that in combination with acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling, there's been studies that have shown that it reduces the amount of cortisol in the body. And cortisol is the stress hormone. There have been studies done by Dr. Peter Stapleton, who is based over in Australia. And I'm a visual person, so I'm just going to share this real quick because the science is fascinating to me. And I can imagine that there are people that are on this that are skeptical of this idea of tapping on yourself to reduce pain.
Well, you've got two camps here. You've got the people in chat, which we love you, chatters. Mwah. saying what's tapping, and the other one saying tapping is awesome.
Right.
Keep going, Lauren, because you're crushing. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So there is this, it's called the hand model. And this was taught by Dr. Dan Siegel. And so it's this idea that your hand is, we're going to pretend that my fist is my brain. And this part of my fist right here is this part of my brain, the prefrontal cortex. So information comes up the brainstem to the prefrontal cortex. That is how we make good sound decisions, right? Information comes up there. Now, when we are in a state of fight or flight, what happens is information is coming up the brainstem, and the amygdala, we're going to pretend the amygdala is my thumb, the amygdala starts to fire, starts to go off. So information is coming up the brainstem, and it literally cannot get to that area of the brain to make the good sound decisions, right? So this can be those situations where perhaps you're so stressed out, you're so overwhelmed, you might even say to yourself, I can't even think straight, right? Or you're in so much pain where you could say to yourself, I can't even think straight because I'm in so much pain. You literally can't, because you're unable to access that part of the brain to be able to think clearly. So what tapping helps you do is, as you're tapping on these points, as you're saying out loud the emotions that you're feeling, a message is being sent to the amygdala in the brain. And it's telling the amygdala, hey, amygdala, you don't need to be creating all of that cortisol. And so as the information goes up and it tells the amygdala, you don't need to be creating all that cortisol, slowly that prefrontal cortex comes back online. So it's this idea that when that alarm is going off, it's like you flip your lid, right? That idea, like you can't even think straight, you flip your lid. And so slowly that prefrontal cortex begins to come back online because you're reducing the amount of cortisol, that stress hormone. So now you can think clearly. And the study that Dr. Peter Stapleton did showed that there was a reduction in cortisol by up to 43%. And that's a really, really big number. So I always tell people you can just tap and do some breathing, and it's going to help to calm you.
And if it becomes something that we know how to do, it's a tool we can, because we're all about tools here at the Lipedema Roundtable. You know, we talk about vibration plates, we talk about the Lymphopress, we talk about exercise, we talk about everything. So if you can have tapping in your toolbox, it can help. Could you lead us in a quick exercise?
Yes,
is everybody up for that?
You good for that?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So I often find that it is easier for people to recognize a difference when we focus on something physical first. So what I would like and encourage everybody to do is to take a nice deep breath in. And when you take this deep breath in, I want you to give a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 for the quality of your breath. So how easy is it to take the breath? How smooth is it? Do you notice choppiness in the breath? Do you feel like it's a struggle to really expand the lungs? So we're rating on a scale of 1 to 10 the quality of our breath. And so if it was the easiest breath you've ever taken and it felt really smooth and good, you could be a 0. And if it was the most challenging breath you ever took, it would be a 10. So I'm just going to pause there, let everybody take a nice deep breath in and let it go. And so for me, I noticed a little bit of choppiness on my exhale.
Is that because we're on a live webinar? Because I have some choppiness too.
It could be. Right? It could be. So if people in the chat
I just
want
ate,
to write,
so
okay.
Is that why mine was choppy?
You know, if you want to write in the chat what you feel in your breath, feel free to do so, or what your numbers are. And then one other check-in point is take a nice deep breath in and count on the inhale how long it takes you to inhale, and count on the exhale how long it takes you to exhale. So for me, I was a 8 on the inhale and a 10 on the exhale. You know, you just want to be consistent with how you're counting.
What's a good number?
No, there's no good number. It's just how long it takes you to take the breath in and how long it takes you to take the breath out, you know, because you could be counting really slow. You could be counting really fast. The idea is just to kind of have consistency with it. And once we do some tapping, we're going to check back in and see if the quality of our breath, if that number has shifted, and also if perhaps the length of our breath has shifted as well. So you can we'll start by going through the points. So we'll tap on the pinky side of the hand, and you can do either hand. doesn't matter. I tend to tap with my right hand because I'm a righty, but there's no wrong way of doing it. And so Brenda, I'll just ask you to be my echo. So the way that we do this is that I'm going to say a sentence, and I would encourage everyone, if you're in a place where you feel comfortable, to repeat the sentence out loud. There's power in speaking the words out loud. So even though I feel some constriction in my breathing,
even though I feel some constriction in my breathing,
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Even though I feel some tightness in my breathing,
even though I feel some tightness in my breathing,
it's okay and I'm okay.
it's okay and I'm okay.
Even though I feel some constriction in my breathing,
even though I feel some constriction in my breathing,
right here, right now, I'm honoring how I feel.
right here, right now, I'm honoring how I feel.
Coming to the top of the head, there's constriction in my breathing.
There's constriction in my breathing.
Coming to the start of the eyebrows, I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
Sides of the eyes, I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
Under the eyes, I feel this tightness in my chest.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
Under the nose, I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
Onto the chin, I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
Onto the collarbone, right below the collarbone. There's constriction in my breathing.
There's constriction in my breathing.
Then we're going to go under the arm. So for women, it's about the center of the bra strap. For men, it's about 2.5, 3 inches down on the side of the body. I feel this tightness in my chest.
I feel this tightness in my chest.
And then the back of the hand between the pinky and the ring finger. I feel this constriction in my breathing.
I feel this constriction in my breathing.
And then pause right there. I like to bring my hands onto my chest and then just take a nice deep breath in, and we're going to notice the quality of our breath, if it feels any easier to take that breath in. Do you notice a difference?
I noticed a difference personally. I noticed it, and I noticed that I was completely distracted. All of a sudden, it just took me out of my head too.
Yeah.
So
you know, as you move through this, so that's just a quick example of what you can do. But then as a practitioner, what my job is to continue to ask you questions. So it's like, okay, if that constriction that you're feeling in your chest was an emotion, what emotion do you think that would be? If that feeling in your chest could talk to you, what do you think it would say? And so as the practitioner, I ask lots of questions. People answer those questions. We create phrases based off of those answers. And that is how it's very organic. And you begin to peel back the layers to see what's really going on. And oftentimes you'll have things pop up in your mind, how you said, your mind started to wander. Sometimes, a memory will come up from the past, and then our mind tries to make sense of that. Like, oh, that's not
and then
related.
I want to go like this.
Yeah. That's not related to why I'm feeling this way right now in this moment. But I can guarantee you, if there's a thought that's coming, that's surfacing, there is some sort of connection. There's a reason why that's coming up. And the reason is not to ignore it. The reason is to explore it. And so, you can start to go deeper and see what's really going on.
Okay, that was a very high level exercise, and we are so appreciative of you, Lauren, and walking us through that. Is that if we watch the tape over or the recording over, is that the sequence of where you should begin and how you should proceed? Okay, and people can go, and if you could put your info in chat, Lauren, she is mindshiftwithlauren.com if you want to catch up with her, and if you want to maybe even work with Lauren. But I've worked with her in the past, not regarding tapping, and I found Lauren to be a genuinely caring individual and a wonderful resource. So we're really thrilled that you were with us today.
Thank you so much. And if
of course,
I'll drop all my links in here, and if anybody wants more information, I do have a free masterclass that goes into a lot more detail about the science behind it. So I'll drop.
Oh, we love free and we love master classes. We've got 72 people, an all-time high, that have logged on for tonight's Lipedema Patient Roundtable. So I am just saying applause, applause, applause. I look forward to the day when we have 500. I remember when we started this, Rich Bradley was a proponent from day one, very patient-centered. I'm wondering, do you have a patient testimony that comes to mind about how their lives were made better because of you being able to help them? And all I can see is your hand right now, Rich. I don't know what's going on with that.
I had to unmute myself. So, you know, I mean, as far as testimonials go and stuff, I mean, I guess that's really the most beneficial part of my job is really seeing that I make a difference in the people and the quality of their life. You know, I get patients that call me that, you know, haven't been able to wear shoes for 2 years. And now they're like, gosh, I can wear shoes again, you know, and you could just see that it's really made a huge difference in just the mobility of people and be able to be to be more active and be able to do things with their grandkids. And, you know, I mean, I hear so many different types of stories. It just amazes me. And that really is what drives me to do what I do. I've been doing it for 17 years now. So, and it's funny, I gave people pumps back in 2008 and they call me and they go, are you still with that same company? And I go, yeah. And they go, you are? And I'm like, yeah, they're so amazed. I'm still with Lymphopress, you know, so it's really kind of amazing. So it's been very beneficial for me and very rewarding to really make a difference in people's lives.
Wonderful. And you do a great job of it as well. Dr. Beidas, same with you, same question. What about a testimony? All right. So when someone comes to you and they're interested in surgery is not for everyone. How do you intake them? How do you guide them through the process?
Well, great question, but a little difficult to answer. So, you know, so I don't know if everyone here knows, I am in Orlando and I was with a hospital system called Orlando Health up until December of last year. And I just switched to Advent Health beginning in January. And so it kind of took me a few steps back. I mean, what I was trying to build and what I'm working on now is getting a team of providers. So that would include myself. We've connected with our physical therapist at Advent Health. My goal is to bring in some endocrine and metabolic experts to tackle some of the diet and weight challenges. I've heard some patients say they've had really good success with some of these new weight loss medications, and they have, you know, patients with lipedema. And so I think that could be something interesting to explore. I don't know if that was discussed at FDRS. I unfortunately was in a separate meeting in Dallas, so I couldn't make it this year. And then also weight loss surgeons, and then psychiatrists, nutritionists. So really building a team at our hospital that can manage the lipedema patient from start to finish, because I think it takes a team to kind of get a patient through. So in terms of intake, I think ultimately my goal is to have a patient really meet everyone if they're a candidate to meet all these people. You know, which ultimately maybe the weight loss surgeons aren't for every patient, but I think the rest of the team can. Maybe myself also is not a candidate at some point. If we can figure out this disease and figure out how to cure it without surgery. But yeah, so, you know, PT, physical therapy, that's physical therapy, diet, psychiatry, endocrine, and then vascular medicine for patients who are candidates for that, I think would be a really great team to have all in one place. And right now, I don't think that exists. So,
well, that's a really great goal. And you did mention those like Ozempic, and there's lots of chatter about that. I know, Patty, you are especially interested in that. From your medical opinion, Dr. Beidas, do you have any cautions or warnings when it comes to these approaches?
I don't really prescribe them, so I'm not really up to date on, you know, who's a good candidate, who's not a good candidate, what are the risks. But like I said, I know lots of patients who've gotten on those medications for one reason or another and raved about, you know, how it's really worked for them. And again, I mean, I think we all know someone who's been on Ozempic at this point and had success, but I'm specifically referring to lipedema patients.
Yeah, some of our friends in Chatland have had really great results as well. The topic
Was there
of
anything at
gas-
it?
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, was there anything about it at FDRS? Short story, not the Cliff Notes version.
Anything?
Not really.
Not really.
Okay. well,
Yeah.
They said they were gonna talk about it, but it didn't really seem like it came to fruition.
I don't think there's much data on it, so I think it's just anecdotal information that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
The topic of gaslighting came up, and I think what was a healing moment for many of the patients was having the opportunity to interact with doctors and the sense of being seen and heard. And when I first met you, Dr. Beidas, the first thing you said is you had not a background in lipedema, but as soon as you learned of it, you wanted to help. And that's how your practice has grown. Yeah. So gaslighting, any approaches, any advice for our chatters and our panelists when they feel that they are being gaslit? Find another doctor.
Are you talking to me? Sorry, I thought that was a general panelist
Everybody,
question.
go ahead. Pale ginger pear.
So I go with probably with the redheaded attitude, but I go and I just say, you took an oath to help me. And if you're not willing to help me, then point me to somebody who will. And some people don't want to help the fat patient, and that's fine, but I'll go where I will get help. And I mean, I had to fight for each pre-op clearance, even going into the pre-op clearance for number 7, when I had clear results that this surgery was what has been helping and changing my life. They still were like, well, you're overweight. Yeah, I'm aware of this. I'm trying to address it. And as you can see, my numbers and my stats are the same or better each surgery. So my numbers weren't getting worse. I wasn't gaining weight. I wasn't, my cholesterol wasn't skyrocketing. I wasn't getting closer to diabetes. My numbers were either the same or better with each lipedema surgery. And each time I still had to go in with my before and afters and the standard of care and be like, I'm back. Can we just sign the paperwork? Every single time. And I just went with the attitude of, this is what I need. You're going to sign off on it, or you're going to let me know somebody that will. And I mean, we have no problem going to a different mechanic if they don't fix our car. Why do we feel guilty switching doctors?
Excellent point. Anybody else want to speak to this? Go ahead, Jenny.
So
Angelique.
sometimes, people are visiting doctors on an emergency and they're in front of you. I mean, I have been to a doctor's office for a sore throat and been told to lose weight. And it's, and my response has become, I really appreciate that conversation another day. That's not why I'm here now. And I often use the tactic also of, I appreciate that. If somebody came to you with the same set of symptoms and wasn't overweight, what would you be doing for them? Rather than just focusing on something that's completely unrelated, because sometimes, I walked out of a doctor's office 25 years ago and I stayed out for 20 years, unless there was a crisis. That was how I handled gaslighting.
Yeah.
So I feel very fortunate to have found one that's a great general practitioner now.
Hiba Hamadi, who is in our chat tonight and who was an amazing speaker at FDRS. We just adore you already. She spoke about the standard of care and walking in with it and being your own advocate. We would say to everyone watching this, whether you are on the live or watching it as it's recorded and on YouTube, keep fighting, keep pressing against that chrysalis. You're creating the strength in your wings and you will fly. Do not give up. And when you feel like giving up, call one of us. We are here to support you. Your people are here to support you. The different groups like Lipedema Fitness and Pale Ginger Pear and Lipedema and Food Sensitivities, Lippy Butterfly, Lympha Press, all of the L's. We are here for you and we want to help you. Angelique, you wanted to share something about gaslighting.
It was really basically what you just said about what Heba had said in her talk. It kind of gave me encouragement. She had mentioned having to see 25 doctors in order to find the right PCP, I think it was. But I think that I was able to become complacent after seeing so many doctors, and then I found a doctor that was willing to do what I said, but that meant that I had to keep on top of things. Heba kind of gave me the encouragement to keep looking for another doctor. Like perhaps there's now somebody out there who is willing to research lipedema themselves and not just wait for me to tell them I need this next prescription and I need this next therapist and so on like that. It was good. You know, I think I stopped at maybe 5 doctors when I found the one that would do what I said, but maybe 25 or maybe 30 is the number, but it's okay to keep looking for that next doctor who actually is going to be excited and interested in you and your condition and actually help you through the journey. And building the team, that was the other thing that she had mentioned in her presentation that kind of was encouragement for me, was that it isn't just the one PCP, but like the entire team, and having that entire team working together for that common goal. It's something that I'm looking forward to doing now that I'm back. I was kind of in a really bad funk this past year, but the FDRS really did give me encouragement. Those talks really did help.
That's so good. Excellent. It's hard to keep up with all that's going on in chat. You're amazing. I'm wondering if those who were speakers that last day at FDRS would join us as panelists for our event on the 25th. If you are open to that, Heba, and I also see Jen is out there. Of course, our own pale ginger pear spoke beautifully in her gorgeous hot pink outfit. We loved it. And also there was the other final speaker, second speaker. She was amazing as well. We'll invite all of you to be with us on Tuesday night, and we'll send out an invite to all of you who have registered here. I cannot believe we are coming up on under 15 minutes left. So Wickham, yes, Wickham is the other speaker who I will send an invite to be with us on Tuesday night. We had one question, and by the way, this is your big chance. If you want to ask a question of either Lauren about tapping and mind shift and pain management, or Dr. Beidas, please put your questions in the Q&A. Dr. Beidas, you answered a question about CVI privately, but for the benefit of our entire audience, how do you feel about patients with chronic venous insufficiency? Do you feel like they have to reflux veins closed first, or do you feel that the liposuction will help any insufficient refluxing veins?
Good question. And you know what I said in the chat, in my experience, is it's better to treat these issues ahead of time, or ahead of going and doing a debulking or a skin excision. And it's not just refluxing veins. It can be, significant varicose veins, which can increase the risk of bleeding because of their size. I like to treat those ahead of time. It can be, when people are really advanced, have lipolymphedema. I actually have a partner who treats lymphedema, and we will usually discuss a patient at our conference. We have a monthly conference, and we discuss all our patients. And that is a little bit more unclear, but we typically go through and we'll bounce ideas back and forth. And he's a good sounding board, because I'll ask him, do you think this lymphedema is significant enough that you should do something to treat that first, and then we address the lipedema secondarily, or do we do this vice versa? And typically, if they're early, very little mild lymphedema, then I'll typically treat them first. And then sometimes we see that resolve, sometimes not, but then he can take care of that, that resolved issue or unresolved issue. But if it is a significant lymphedema, then he will treat it first, and then we treat the lipedema secondarily.
There's a lot of response to your idea of a lipedema center of excellence with an entire complement team. I think if that can be created, it will be a magnet and a beacon of hope to many people, Dr. Beidas. We don't give and offer any specific medical advice on the roundtables, but there was a question about surgery helping the quality of life and mobility for a late stage 4 with a very high BMI. Angela Gray, our heart goes out to you. We hear you. we know that finding surgeons is difficult with these obstacles and finding out at a late stage. Now, I know without having seen Angela, you can't offer any medical advice, but I just wanted to acknowledge that the question was there if you wanted to speak to it, Dr. Beidas.
So, excuse me, again, another good question. You know, and I answered this in the chat as well. I don't know what very, very high is, but I can tell, you know, I always approach this from a standpoint of what's safe and what's not safe. And, you know, the higher a BMI, and I know BMI is not a great number, but it's the only objective tool that we have. And so, you know, we don't really have another way to stratify patients based on risk factors other than by BMI, because that's what all the studies have based their risk stratification on. So when people say very, very high BMI, I'm thinking, you know, over 40 or over 50, and you get to a point where it is somewhat unsafe to take a patient to the operating room and do some of these procedures. From a pulmonary standpoint, meaning, you know, there's a breathing tube, at least when I do these operations, that was another question that came up. I do it under general anesthesia. So there's an anesthesiologist putting a breathing tube in your throat, and the heavier you are, studies have shown it's harder to get that breathing tube out at the end of a long surgery. From a wound healing standpoint, in the sense of when we do these big debulkings or do big skin excisions, there's a higher risk of a wound falling apart with patients with larger BMIs. And so I think you have to kind of take that carefully when you say, well, I have a really high BMI, but I want my lymphedema treated. From a mobility standpoint, I think absolutely. I mean, we see lots of patients who, whether they're first stage or advanced stage, get a huge improvement in their mobility and their daily activities and then their quality of life. And, you know, you asked me earlier about a patient testimonial, and to be honest, it's hard to think of one because so many I can think of so many conversations with various women, whether it's after one operation or after 3 or 4 operations, who come in and say, I can bike again, I can walk, I can play with my kids, I can sit down on the floor. And so I really can't think of one patient testimonial.
Thanks for sharing that. And we appreciate the question. Safety is, of course, the utmost concern, and we care about each and every one of you out there. We want you to make good decisions, and only you can know. And, you know, Pale Ginger Pear, when you approached the idea of surgery and you jumped in.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it was completely scary. And every surgery, I went in with the huge amount of mom guilt of, am I taking this risk where I might not wake up to see him again, especially being a single mom? But I knew, as somebody that lost their mother at 25 to cancer, that I wanted to be around for him. And so I had to take the risk. I was very fortunate enough that Jamie Schwartz never once stressed about my weight and my size. He factored in my results and my health and all of that. I mean, I had a high BMI of 66 when I started. After 7 surgeries, well, after 6, I don't know, after the 7th, I haven't been back to a doctor just yet. But after 6, it was only down to 60. I joked I lost a point per surgery. But I'm down 10 inches around my hips and my waist. I'm down multiple clothing size. I can walk, I can stand. I mean, you guys saw me buzzing about FDRS all weekend. I mean, I was standing 14, 16-hour days. I drove 11 hours to Atlanta and had very minimal swelling that I wouldn't have had before.
And fought off male attention every step of the way.
I did.
May we just say.
I did.
I mean,
several date offers and multiple phone numbers. I need to go back to Atlanta, apparently.
We loved that you were so candid in sharing your story, and you do not minimize that there was a calculated decision that you made for you. And we underscore for everyone watching, what is right for one patient it's not necessarily your path. There are people on this panel who have elected not to do surgery. We honor that. Remember, this is an all love zone. Everybody here is accepted without judgment, however you choose to pursue. We just want your life to be the pursuit of happiness and health as much as possible. And we will root you on the entire way as you do that. Before we run out of time, I have one more question for Dr. Beidas. And I want everybody to think about words that you want to leave our audience with. So everyone, you're going to get called on. But Dr. Beidas, final question for you. Cynthia Mason wants to know if you use local or general anesthesia, or if you use Vaser.
So I do everything under general anesthesia, just like Kara was saying she had. We have a Vaser machine. I don't think there's any data. Someone correct me if I'm wrong about Vaser and lipedema. I think some people are against it. I don't know if that's from personal experience or from theorizing that it's not a good idea. I have the machine. I don't use it on lipedema patients. I just don't think there's enough data out there to say this is a good idea. So
okay. And Kara, were your surgeries under general or local anesthesia, by the way?
General. I was out. I did not want to be awake for it. And I mean, he didn't give me the option, but I didn't want to be awake for it. And they also told me that I, of course, needed more anesthesia because of being a redhead. We require more.
that's not a joke. That's actually
not
true.
a joke. That's for reals. That's for reals. Hey, I want to be put out when I'm at the dentist. So I totally get it. All right. Words to leave our audience with. I cannot believe, did this hour fly by? But we do this every month, the third Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, we're doing a special episode next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will also, there's so many of you. Beth, you did an amazing job with the fashion show. We know that you're out there tonight as well. So many of you bringing light and hope and encouragement and information. We see you, we value you, we thank you. And with that, words to leave people with. Jenny Bogine, you're first.
Modifying self-care.
What does that mean?
Because I'm kind of readjusting my daily routine now, which is an hour and 45 minutes. I've got my limits on how much I'm going to do, but I want to pick up everything I learned and add it in.
There you go. Because we're always learning, we're always growing and changing. Modifying self-care. Excellent. It took me a little bit. I needed to tap to get that. Sorry.
That's me.
All right. Angelique, your turn.
You are worthy of loving yourself, and loving yourself means pouring into yourself. Sometimes it means changing your routine, modifying your self-care. Sometimes it means taking that little extra stretch to get to FDRS, to be in a community with other people. Sometimes it means giving yourself a break, but whatever it means, you are worthy of love, but love not from the external world, but loving your own self.
There's one person you're guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with. That's what I always say. So you should love yourself. Absolutely. Thank you for that reminder, Angelique. Lauren, what would you like to leave our guests with tonight?
I would just say some words that I read in John Kehoe's book, which is the power of mind power. So he talks about how the external world it's well known the external world can impact our internal world. But when we focus on our internal world, it can have just as big of an impact on the external world. So going within, the answers really are all within.
Beautiful, beautiful. Someone reminded in chat that I had said, never turn your back on yourself again. Patty Cornute, what would you like to leave our guests with tonight?
If you are not feeling strong and able to do it on your own, reach out, because there's so many of us here that will hold you up and will fire you up. And we got you.
We got you. We got you. That should be our new tagline. We should get t-shirts. Lipedema Patient Roundtable. We got you. Dr. Beidas, what do you want to say?
Try tapping. It works.
Oh, nice.
Lauren did
All
not
right.
pay me to say that.
You're funny too. We liked having you a part of our show tonight. And we also want to thank you that you gave of your valuable time to be with us. We appreciate you, Dr. Beidas, and the work you're
Thanks
doing.
for having me. This was great.
Rich Bradley, what do you want to leave all of our viewers with tonight?
Well, Angelique kind of stole my thunder there, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to say until Angelique said something. But
That happens to all of us whenever Angelique talks.
Yeah, I guess it's never give up, and it's like you said, you have to live with you have to live with yourself the rest of your life. So, it's very important to love yourself first.
Oh, Rich, I'm so glad you shared that. And by the way, how many years have you been with Lymphopress now?
17.
17 years you've been dedicated to making lives better. And I know your phone rings all times of the day and night, and you care deeply. That's why I wanted you to be here tonight as well. Thank you for being here on behalf of Lymphopress. And Kara, you get the last word tonight.
I'm going to take a little bit from my one slide of my presentation. You have to put your mask on first. You have to start taking care of yourself in any capacity, whether it's compression or dry brushing, or just saying, I need 10 minutes, leave me alone, fend for yourself, and stepping away from the kids or the husband or the family or whoever, and just taking that moment to yourself, because you have to put yourself first, because if you burn out, you will not be around for them.
And we're saying to all of you, you will. So you're going to take care of yourself. And part of it was being with us tonight. And we send you lots of love, everyone. I hope you feel seen and heard and validated. Lymphopress cares. We all care. We're here for you. We'll be back next month and also Tuesday night to talk FDRS. Everyone, I hope you feel the love. Have a great night. Thank you, everyone, especially our special guests. We'll see ya. See ya. Bye.